Okay, I got you.
All right. Well, we are rocking and rolling, so I'll get this thing going here. Okay.
Yes, sir.
All right. Well, welcome. This is Life's Co-Pilot. We are Life Co-Pilot is kind of a free offering that we bring to you from Caring Transitions, where we help people downsize and do all kind of stuff. But what we're trying to do is get information out to seniors and their family members and their caregivers about any and all things senior, so that we cover a pretty broad gamut. Today, I'm real excited about bringing Jamie Hopper. Was it? Well, I don't know if you want to go by James or Jamie, but anyway, I know you as Jamie, um, who is going to be talking to us about what you need to know before you take Social Security. I saw you do this presentation somewhere, and I cannot for the life of me remember where it was. I saw it, but I'm like, I knew we needed to get a bigger audience for this. It's a great presentation. I'm kind of in that same boat right now. I have not started taking it yet. I'm qualified to, but I'm not ready to take it. So, I mean, I probably wait till it's time that I have to. Okay. So in any case, I'm going to have Jamie explain all this stuff. First of all, tell us who you are, who you represent, and then let you roll from there.
Absolutely. I appreciate that. I'm Jamie Hopper. I am a registered financial consultant with Money Concepts, an independent financial representative for clients. So, what that means is I have access to pretty much everything in the market, and I'm allowed to work basically as a matchmaker for my clients, which I love because I get to know people well. I get to know their families. I get to know their kids, their grandkids, understand their goals and their dreams. And it's about me building that relationship with them and understanding what they need instead of me being a product salesman or working for a company that has an agenda. I really get to sit down and learn about people, which is the most important thing. And that's really what I love. When I got started in the business, I really wanted to help young people not make some of the same mistakes my wife and I made. But I had something happen very early on in my career that changed a lot of that for me. My very first client that I wasn't related to was actually a restaurant manager that I had worked for. And he was at this stage where he was ready to claim Social Security. His knees were giving out. He needed to retire. And he was really freaked out every day. I'd see him, and his hair looked like Einstein. And he was like, Jamie, the Dow's here. The Dow's here. One day I feel like I can retire. The next day I can't. And it took a while to get him to come into my office. But he and his wife eventually did come in. And we were able to go through some things with him and show him some different options. And he got really excited. He was like, Jamie, I remember my grandpa used to teach me these things. I'd kind of forgotten some of this. And we did eventually set up a plan, get him started to where he and his wife had monthly income coming in every month that was enough for him to be able to retire. But the thing that changed everything for me was I got a phone call from him one day, and I knew he hadn't been feeling well. And he said, Jamie, I'm in the hospital, and I just want to say thank you. And I was like, well, sure, for what? He was like, I don't know if I'm going home or not, but I know my wife is going to be okay. And when he said that to me, it absolutely changed everything for me. Now I'm going to throw this out there. He's doing fine. That was in 2018, and I still talk to him on a pretty regular basis. So it did not have a bad ending. But all of a sudden, he had that comfort and calm and clarity that everything was going to be all right. And when I heard that from him, it really wanted me to really help those people approaching retirement, people like Jim, to make sure that they've got everything aligned and in order so they know that their income is going to be dependable every month, because that's really what helps people sleep at night. When you know every month your income is going to be there, it doesn't make a difference what happens in Washington or on the news or overseas. Knowing that your income is going to be there is really going to help you sleep, and then everything else is icing on the cake. That's what's going to help you take the kids on vacation and pay for your grandkids college and leave a legacy to your favorite charities in your church. And this is just a part of the conversation. And when I got the opportunity about a year ago to team up with this company that does these presentations and see Social Security as such an important factor in people's retirement, I knew I had to make it part of what I do. So, Jim, I appreciate you allowing me to do that introduction. And if you're ready, I'll jump into it. I'm going to share my screen. Technology is not always my friend.
I had my mic off. I'm sorry. Go right ahead. I put my mic on because my dog was chewing a bone here. So
Oh, hang on, I hit the wrong button. I had the presentation pulled up. Give me just one second here. All right, there we go. Now I gotta do the slideshow. All right, can you see that? All right, cool. Awesome. All right, so what we are going to talk today about is Social Security planning. And people just don't realize how much of an impact Social Security is going to have on their overall retirement plan, on their savings, on their ability to have monthly income, the ability to leave a legacy. So let's start with this little brain teaser, but these questions will definitely get answered as we get going through. This page here is it's got my disclosures on it. Jim referenced those earlier. So I am a financial advisor. I have a lot of compliance. So I got this presentation approved through compliance. So I always have to show this slide here. But I want to thank everybody for coming, everybody that's on the live and is going to watch this later. Things are different now. We see on the news all the time. All the people talking about Social Security. Is it going to be there? Is it not going to be there? Am I going to be able to have enough? Why am I still paying into this? All these different things. Back in the days when my parents and grandparents took Social Security, all they did was wait till they reached the age they wanted to retire. They went down to the Social Security office and they started applying for benefits, and that was it. What they got is what they got. But now people are learning there's so much more to it. There could be tax implications. There are advantages to waiting, the spousal benefits. There's so many different things, and we're going to go through all of that today. So, one of the biggest problems we see is that people are hurting their retirements because they're making terrible, costly decisions about Social Security. Some of those are because they're claiming their benefits too early. They're not taking into consideration what's going to happen for their spouse later. They're causing themselves a lot of tax issues. They may decide they want to work longer, and if they start taking benefits early, that could be affected. So we're going to go through all of this today, but there's really a huge need right now for Social Security education. And that's what this is today. There will be nothing salesy in this presentation. It's purely educational, and I just want to do the best job I can to teach you how to make the right decision. So the things you need to know is there are many claiming options. I mean, really, a couple could conceivably have 18,000 different ways to claim, depending on what age and what options they take. They really do have far-reaching consequences, and it could take up to 12. You only have about 12 months to make changes. After you reach 12 months, the decisions you make are pretty final. So it's really important that you get it done the first time. I'm going to say this a lot, but the choices you make are going to affect you and they're going to affect your spouse. Social Security is not bankrupt. So we're going to go through that. It's not a Ponzi scheme. So we're going to talk about those things. Uh, and we all have friends and family that have been helped by Social Security. So just keep in mind as we go through this that it is going to be a much bigger part of your retirement than what you believe. And at the same time, even though you have friends and family that have gone through this, very few, if any of those people, are experts. And what I mean by that is the rules change all the time, but more importantly, their situation is different than yours. So even though they had benefits of claiming a certain way, your situation may be completely different than that. So we're going to go through all of this. The first question, will Social Security be there for me? How much can I expect to receive? When should I apply for Social Security? How can I maximize my benefits? And then will it be enough to live on in retirement? We're going to go through all this right now. The most important thing we can do is to understand the value of Social Security. Most people tend to minimize it. They think it's just going to be a small percentage of what they get, and really it's designed to be about 40% of your retirement plan. So it's not designed to be your entire retirement plan, but for some people it is. A lot of us haven't saved as much money as we need to. or don't have the same opportunities, or maybe didn't work a job that had a 401k, weren't taught to save. So for some people, Social Security is going to be a huge part of their retirement, but it was really designed to be about 40% of what you spend in retirement. So we're seeing a lot on the news now about the question is Social Security going bankrupt? I can tell you with affirmity, the answer is no. That is not going to be the case. I'll go through a couple slides here and we'll talk about that. So every year they do an audit on the accounts and they make those public. So the trust fund balance at the end of 2023 had $2.8 trillion in it. And that was after baby boomers had been through their prime working years. They had put a lot of money into the system, more money than they're ever going to need to take out. At the end of 2024, the net decrease in assets was 67 billion, which sounds like a lot, but when we're talking about trillions, there is still a significant amount of money left in that fund. So if we look at the long-term projections, if they don't make any changes to Social Security at all, they can pay the same benefits as they're paying now through at least 2034. They estimate that at 2034, benefits for new claimers are going to drop to about 81%. And it shows that it'll even go to 2099, paying at 72%. So the thought that Social Security is not going to be there is more than likely not going to be the case. But what we need is to get have our government take some action and really restore the solvency to the level of what we've been paying into it. And there are some ways that we can do that. So one of the first things that they can do is increase the maximum earnings subject to Social Security tax. Right now, people are only taxed up to $176,000 of their income. So you would pay 6.2% in tax on that, and your employer would pay 6.2% tax on that. But it capped off at 176,000. So if they raise that amount just even a little bit, that should be enough to make the benefit whole again. They could raise the normal retirement age. This one's not my personal favorite, but we're seeing people living longer, healthier lives, and raising the normal retirement age past the age of 67, delaying benefits even that much longer, that could help the system last even longer. Lowering the benefit for future retirees, this one is less likely, but it is possible that they may change the equation of the way they pay out benefits a little bit for people that start taking the income later. And then they could also reduce the cost of living adjustments. And we'll go into that just a little bit. But out of the four, that's the one that's going to have the least impact on it and probably the least likely to happen. Jim, I saw you unmuted yourself. Do you have a question?
No, I just the dog got outside. We had an Amazon thing going on, so you know.
No, you're good. When I
Yeah.
see the red light go off, I just want to make sure I'm not
Yeah.
skipping anything. All right. So the bottom line for baby boomers is that your benefits are not likely to be affected by any sort of Social Security reform. Meaning that once you're at the point where you're going to start claiming benefits, any changes that they make now are probably not going to affect you because you have paid in your entire lifetime and there's more than enough money for you to get your money back out. So, what's a clearer way to think about Social Security? Social Security is inflation protected income. And what that means is once you turn it on, they do give cost of living increases to help offset different cost of living, inflation and other things that happen throughout time. So we're going to go through this, and that's also one of the reasons why it could be very important to delay your benefits longer because you are getting those cost of living increases. But Social Security is the one thing that we have that really, without us even trying, is protected from inflation. So, Social Security offers income you can't outlive, much like an annuity or a pension. This is money, once you turn it on, you're going to get for the rest of your life. So, just a simple example if your monthly benefit right now is $2,000 and you live 10 more years, you could expect to receive $263,000. If you live 20 more years, It's $583,000. If you live 30 more years, that's close to $1 million in benefits that you would receive. And a lot of people don't think of it that way. Most people don't realize that there's a chance they can get $1 million or more out of Social Security. And as a couple, it's even considerably more than that. But this next slide will show this is how the cost of living adjustments really benefit that also. So if you're earning $2,000 today with just a 2% annual cost of living adjustment, in 10 years, your benefit would be over $2,400. In 20 years, it would be almost $3,000. And in 30 years, it would be over $3,600 a month that you would receive. That's why on that last slide, the math wasn't exactly 2 and 3 times what the original number was. So it's really important to delay your benefit as long as possible because that cost of living adjustment does go on where we start. And I will talk about that. So how much can I expect to receive? It's really based on two simple things. Now, that could change, but right now, it really only depends on how much you earned while you're working and the age at which you apply for benefits. Those are the two big factors. Now, when we talk about how your benefits are calculated, what they do at age 62, they total up every year's earnings that you've had and they index them for inflation. So say you're 25 and you're making $20,000 a year, they're going to index that for inflation, what that would be in today's dollars. They take all that together, they divide it by 35, and that comes up with your average index monthly earnings. And then they take that number and they call them bend points, and I'll show it on the next slide, a formula that they use that luckily we never have to figure out ourselves to determine what your primary insurance amount will be. And then all of that is indexed with the cost of living adjustments. So the formula is complicated. We don't have to do this ourselves. Social Security does this for us. But for people that are interested in the math, I'll go through it real quick. So if you were a baby boomer born in 1963, you turned 62 this year, you made the maximum Social Security earnings every year since age 22. Your average index monthly earnings would be $13,689. They take the first $1,226 of that and they give you 90% of it. So 1103. The next $6,165, they give you 32% of that for 1972. And then the amount over that, you only get 15% of that, 944. That totals up to a primary insurance amount of $4,020.90. That's the amount this worker would get if he delayed his benefits to age 67. And we'll go through how all of that works. So a lot of people are going to ask at this point, why shouldn't I claim early at age 62? What's the point of delaying to age 70? So the easiest answer to that is your monthly benefit is going to be reduced if you claim early. It also is going to be reduced for taxes. It's going to be reduced for your Medicare premiums when you turn 65. And if you're still working, some of your benefits could get withheld. So when should I apply for benefits? So it really is based on 5 different things. Your personal health status. How healthy are you? How long do you personally expect to live? Life expectancy. Now, when I think of life expectancy in this situation, I kind of picture how long do the men in your family live? How long have the women in your family lived? Obviously, God only knows the answers to how long you're going to be here, but what's your family history on that? Your need for income. If you don't need to start taking the income, there are reasons why, and I will show you that you'll want to delay your benefits. But some people, if they're not healthy, if it's the only Social Security is the only plan they have for retirement, they may need to start taking it early. Whether or not you plan to work is a big one. And then your survivor needs. And this is the one that gets neglected a lot, especially in situations where we have a high income earner and there's a really good possibility one of you is going to live into your late 80s or 90s. It's really important that we're leaving that surviving spouse with the most benefits possible. So Will Social Security be enough to live on in retirement? No, probably not. Like I mentioned already, it's it's designed to only be about 40% of your retirement plan. But it's super important that as we go through all these different factors, that we're looking at your entire retirement plan. What do you have in savings? What income do you have coming in? Where is it coming from? And then trying to figure out how we can use Social Security to minimize taxes, delay taxes, kick that can down the road. There are a lot of different factors that go into it, and we'll talk through a lot of those things during this presentation. So, the first question is, how much can I expect to receive your full retirement age? If you're born before 1954, your full retirement age is 66. During the mid to late 50s, it's 66 in some number of months. If you're born in 1960 and later, right now, full retirement age is 67. So when I showed you what that primary insurance amount was a couple minutes ago, at age 67, that person could expect to receive the full $4,020. Now, what happens if you apply early? So if that person with the full retirement age of 67 decided they wanted to apply at age 62, they would only get 70% of that primary insurance amount, or about $2,800. 63, it would go up. Every year it goes up. Age 67, you see it's 100%. Now, I've mentioned a couple times there are benefits to delaying benefits. So what happens if you delay your benefits? So what you'll see, starting here at age 67, if you took it at 66, you would get 93%. 67, you get the full 100,000 or full 100%, excuse me. But at age 68, every year you get an 8% increase up to 124% by delaying your benefits. So there's a big advantage of delaying those benefits. So that person with $4,020, if they would delay to age 70, now they would have approximately $5,200 in benefits they would be receiving each month instead of the 4,020, or 70% instead of the 2,800 if you started taking early. Those delayed credits stop at age 70. So there is absolutely zero benefit to waiting past age 70 to claim Social Security. And they do not automatically start sending you the checks. So you do need to call and initiate your benefits when you're approaching age 70. And if you forget, they're not going to give you that money back later. It's just gone. So that is the one time. Make sure if you have delayed your benefits that you do make that phone call to start claiming your benefits, because they will not send them to you if you decide you don't want them or you forget. All right, so how to estimate your Social Security benefits. So this is the one thing for the longest time before I found this program. I really thought all I had to do was tell my clients to log in to ssa.gov, open an account, go through all the security questions, and print out that statement. Let's find out what your primary insurance amount is, and we'll go from there. But I realized that there's so much more that goes into it. Um, that's still the easiest way. That's going to be step one, because we need to figure out what that primary insurance amount is going to be. And then they do have some estimators on the website, some calculators that you can use. But really, the best thing you can do is go there, get your statement. Once you reach age 60, they do still send an annual statement, I believe, in the mail. At some point here, they'll probably start emailing that to people if they haven't already. But that's the easiest way to figure out. And then when you're looking at that statement, you're also going to want to look and see if you believe it's accurate. Any years that you did not work, you get credited as zero. So for those stay-at-home moms and other people, or people that were sick, or maybe business owners that didn't have a lot of income, those years that you weren't working or making a significant income, you get credited zeros. So there, just make sure that the statement is accurate and it represents what you actually accomplished while you're working. So now, why do we delay benefits? The checks are bigger to start is one of the biggest things, but it's those cost of living increases. So if we're looking at age 62 and you're getting 70%, and this is using a $3,000 primary insurance amount. 70% of that would be $2,100. But then the next year, with the cost of living increase, it's going to be $2,295. If you delayed till age 70, now it's going to be $4,359. So there are a lot of benefits why you want to start delaying the benefits. But I'm going to go through a couple options here and just show you what that looks like. So if you start claiming at, if you're age 70 and you started claiming at 62, you'd have $2,400 a month. If you had waited to age 70, you'd have 4359. But this is where it gets really important. I talked a lot about the survivor benefits already. Look at the impact it's going to have later in life. So at age 80, if you claimed early, you're still receiving less than $3,000 a month. If you waited, you're going to be getting over $5,300 a month. At age 90, 3,600 compared to 6,400. And then at age 100, 4,400 compared to almost $7,900. So there are huge impacts on your future if you are able to wait. And delaying benefits is really one of the best ways that you can maximize your benefits. Now, what are some other ways you can maximize those benefits? So, like I mentioned, I kind of skipped through this already, but making sure that statement is accurate, making sure if you have any missing years on your statement, you get it corrected. One thing people can do, so people that have their full earnings record and are continuing to work, we find that people when they're in their 50s and 60s are in their prime earning years. So if you're making a strong income and you want to start continue to work, then they're going to take your top 35 years. So if you're still working later in life, that's going to have a positive impact on your Social Security. If you start claiming Social Security and you're still working and you have more income in those years while you're claiming, they're actually going to adjust your Social Security for those increased earning years. So yes, the answer to that is yes, you can improve your earnings record by working longer. Now, there are some things to consider. So you do want to consider your income needs now and in the future. If you don't need the money right now, it might be a good reason to delay. If you have savings in your retirement accounts or in other places, or you have real estate income, um, you have other if you have life insurance policies you can draw from. If you have a reverse mortgage, there are a lot of different different places where you could possibly draw income from early and allow you to delay those benefits. It may be worth it. Your life expectancy. My mom only lived to 59. She never saw Social Security. But my dad lived till 81, and he actually did really well with his because he was able to work until his full retirement age, and then he started his benefits. But also, I've mentioned this many times, your spouse's life expectancy. It's really important as we look at this that the spouse that makes the higher income, that has the higher primary insurance amount, you're delaying that benefit as long as possible because of that slide I just showed you and the impact of delaying benefits and what your future benefit is going to be. And remembering that your spouse is going to get that money long after you're gone. And that's a really important factor when you're making this decision. So let's talk about taxation. This is the one area that Social Security has not indexed. They have done a good job of indexing everything, giving cost of living increases. The one thing that they have not done in a long time is raise the amount that you can earn without having to pay Social Security on it. So what we're finding now is the majority of people are paying anywhere between 50 to 85%. They're paying taxes on 50 to 85% of their Social Security. And unless they make that change, which I don't see happening, that's gonna happen for a long time. Um, now, I mentioned people before that want to continue working. Do not let this discourage you from continuing to work even after you start taking your benefits. But what they are going to do is withhold some of your benefits if you make too much money. When I say withhold, all that means is they're going to keep those back from you. And then when you reach full retirement age at 67, they're going to put those back into your formula and you will get those later. Um, the formula on that is a little bit unclear, but just know that you're not losing that benefit. They're just delaying you receiving them, but you do get it back later. And if we're looking at it, so they're going to withhold $1 in benefits for every $2 you earn over $23,400. That's the number for 2025. Um, and then there's another earning test after that where they'll withhold even more. Um, to avoid that, you can wait till full retirement age to start claiming your benefits. But there are benefits if you do start claiming early. Just know that you're not going to get your full Social Security amount if you're earning more than that 23,400 after you start claiming benefits until you reach full retirement age. So going back to the taxation, if you're married, filing jointly under 32,000, you're going to pay zero tax on that Social Security. But you see, once you make more than 32,000, you're going to pay between 50 and 85%. If you're single, head of household, widow, or anything like that, the numbers drop down to 25,000 and 34,000. Married filing separately, you're going to pay tax on everything. So you are going to want to, if you're married, file your taxes together. Otherwise, you're going to pay a significant amount more taxes on that. And that is just the rule. So, what are some ways that we can minimize taxes on Social Security benefits? So, one of the things we can do is reduce other income with your tax advantaged investments. Um, what that means is when you're trying to figure out what pots of money you're going to draw from as you're in retirement, you may want to consider during those first many years pulling the money directly out of your Roth IRAs instead of your traditional IRAs, because those traditional IRAs are going to cause a tax issue for you. It's going to raise your taxable income, and it's going to raise the amount of money that you're going to pay in taxes on your Social Security. Anticipate in advance what your RMDs are, which could put you in a higher tax bracket. Now, this next one's going to be a little bit contrary to the first one, but you may want to consider converting some of your traditional IRAs to Roth. That's a huge part of this. As much money as you can get in those tax advantaged investments, Roth and life insurance and other things that you're never going to pay tax on again, that's going to lower your taxation all the way across the board. So it's really important to work with your financial advisor on your entire plan and figure out where you are going to be paying taxes and when. And then if you have the opportunity to start doing some Roth conversions early while you're delaying benefits, it's going to have a huge impact on what we do later. Now, delaying your Social Security reduces the number of years that your benefits are subject to tax. So that's another way we can do that. And then reducing your expenses. This is such an important thing. Getting that mortgage paid off, getting any student loans paid off finally, getting having your cars paid off. Because if your expenses are lower, then obviously your need for income is lower. And that's going to cause you to have to draw more money out of your, or less money out of your retirement plan that could cause taxation later. And then, like I said, work with your financial advisor and continue to manage all of this during retirement because the laws are going to change, things are going to change. Just making sure that you're paying attention to all of it for your particular situation. Now, Medicare is also going to have an impact on it. So, this is another big reason why you're going to want to start claiming money, start claiming your benefit later. And just look at this. So, if your PIA was 2,600 and you start claiming at 62, that's 1820. Your Social Security, sorry, your Medicare premium of $185 is going to represent 9% of that. If you wait till 70 and you're receiving $3,200, that's only going to, Medicare is only going to represent 5% of your payment. So your premium's not going to change based on your Social Security, but the effect it's going to have on your future lifestyle will. I'm just going to tell a story real quick as we're talking about reducing expenses and the effect of Medicare. I do a financial ministry at our church with a lot of other people, and I recently got connected with a friend of ours. She just turned 75, and she sat down and she's like, "Jamie, I've been doing great during retirement. It's been hard, but I was doing fine until they raised my rent, and now I'm struggling and I don't know what to do." And we went through, and her Social Security payment was $1,850 a month, and she had about a $350 pension from Eli Lilly. And she's like, by the time I pay my rent and a few other things that I need, there's no money left over. And then she confided in me that she took a job at age 73, working in the school cafeteria where her grandsons went to school. And the reason she wanted to work in the school cafeteria is one, because she couldn't work very long, so she was only there 4 hours a day. But the biggest reason why she chose that job is because they gave her a free lunch every day. And she would take that lunch home and make two meals out of it. And that was just shocking to me that somebody at age 75 was having to do that. And when we went through her budget and I said, "How much are you spending on food?" She said, "I literally spend $30 a month on food." And that's because nobody coached her. She started claiming her benefits at age 62, and that was the end of the story. And now she lives with the consequences for the rest of her life. So when we're talking about this and the impact all these things can have, the one benefit that she's going to have is they're changing the rule for 2026 that if you're on a Medicare supplement, you actually have a window around your birthday where you can actually change your MedSup plan without going through underwriting, which has never been the case before until next year. Indiana's adopted it for 2026. So we are going to have the opportunity for her next September to review her Medicare plan and see if we can lower her premium payment down. Um, but most people don't have that opportunity. So these are the kinds of things that you want to take into consideration when you're making all of these decisions. So when to apply? I feel like we've gone over this in detail, so I'm going to skip through to a couple of these next slides and we'll really dig into it. Um, but this is a big thing that people say all the time. I'm not going to live long, so why shouldn't I just claim my benefit while I can? The answer to that is for couples mainly. If you're a single person, yes, we're going to look at your entire situation. And if you need to start claiming early, if you don't think you're going to be here forever and you could live off the limited amount they're going to give you, then yeah, go ahead and start claiming. But if you're a couple, you've got to maximize that higher earners benefit as much as possible. So let's talk about the spousal benefits. The spousal benefit is going to be equal to half of the primary workers' primary insurance amount. So what that means is now this presentation, I didn't give this disclaimer earlier, is geared towards baby boomers. The majority of baby boomer women stayed home with the kids while they were in school and did not have a full working record. That changed a lot, 20, 30 years ago. Um, so there are a lot of people that do have their own working record, but it may not have been as much money as their spouse that worked full time. So what they allow you to do is while both spouses are living, you can get half of your spouse's primary insurance amount. But what we find for many people is PIA is actually higher and they're able to claim their own benefit. So in this example here, John's PIA is $2,000, Jane's is 800. So if Jane applies at full retirement age, her benefit will actually be $1,000 because she's going to get 50% of his amount. Now, if he starts claiming early, that affects that. So we'll go into detail on that. So the one rule, the primary worker must have filed for his own benefits. There was a loophole in the past where spouses were claiming each other's spousal benefit early before claiming their own. They wiped that away 5 or 6 years ago. So to get your spousal benefit, the primary spouse has to start claiming their own benefit. The spouse receiving the benefits must be at least 62 for a reduced benefit or 67 for the full benefit. And there are no delayed credits on spousal benefits after full retirement age. So just keep that in mind. Now, coordinating those spousal benefits is one of the most important things we can do to make sure that we're maximizing benefits for everybody. So where the lower earning spouse's PIA is more than 50%, they're going to get their own. In that situation, both spouses, if they delayed to age 70, that's going to maximize the benefits for everybody. Where the lower earning spouse's PIA is less than 50%, it might be beneficial for the lower earning spouse to claim early and the higher earning spouse to claim at age 70. Because what's going to happen is it's going to generate a higher income sooner. But if that higher income earning spouse does pass first, then the lower income earning spouse is going to receive that full spouse's benefit upon their death. They'll lose their own benefit, but they're going to have the higher one. So that's a good way to maximize both. It's still not as good as delaying both, but you can definitely get some more money that way. Now, I didn't mention this
Let me
earlier.
ask a real quick question. If when you're talking about this, you're talking about they get half of the spouse, of the higher earning spouse, is that during the time that both spouses are alive, or is it, are they getting half after their higher earning spouse is gone?
So that's why they're both alive.
Okay.
So while they're both alive, the higher income earning spouse is going to get their full amount. The lower earning spouse is going to get half. And then when the higher income earning spouse passes, then that lower income earning spouse is going to get the higher benefit for the rest of their lives. They won't get both. They'll get that higher amount for the rest of their lives. So they do get that increase at that point. Does that make sense?
Yes, that's that. I'm glad to get that clarity.
Yep, absolutely. I appreciate that. One thing that I do have access to that I haven't mentioned is that with this program, I've got really good software. So we can get access and do break even analysis and see all the different scenarios for claiming strategy. So you start with if both claim at 62, one claims at 62, the other 67, both at 67, both wait till 70, and really see the impacts of what that could have going forward and really make an informed decision. That's one thing you're not going to get from Social Security. Social Security, they'll be able to tell you what your benefit amount will be, but they do not have the opportunity to run any break-even analysis or anything like that. And that's something I have access to. I'll talk about it at the end, but it's really important when you're making that decision for both spouses to go through that and see what the choices are. All right, so I'm already widowed or divorced. How does that impact my Social Security strategy? This is a really important question to ask. If you're widowed or divorced, you may be eligible for survivor benefits also. There are divorce spouse benefits, there are benefits that can increase your monthly check. So let's just go through a couple different options here. So the survivor benefit is going to depend on a couple things. It's going to depend on the age at which the deceased spouse originally claimed his benefit. So if he waited till full retirement age, then the survivor benefit's going to be 82.5% of that PIA. If he started claiming early, it's going to be even less. if he waited till age 70, then you're going to get that full amount. So there are benefits to waiting in this situation too. Um, I cannot emphasize enough the benefits of delaying. The survivor benefit is also going to depend on the age at which the widow claims the survivor benefit. So if the survivor claims before full retirement age, the survivor benefit will be a fraction of the original benefit, or about 71.5% if they claim at age 60. And that does go up a little bit every year to age 67. If the survivor claims at full retirement age or later, the survivor benefit will be equal to 100% of the original benefit. But just remember, it does depend on when that original spouse started claiming their benefit. Now, if the spouse dies while both receiving benefits, like I mentioned, the widow or widower may switch to the higher benefit amount. It's always important to call Social Security to make sure they know that the deceased spouse has passed, so those benefits will stop. But they will also be able to make that calculation for you and figure out which benefit you're supposed to receive. Um, so just realize, like I said, Jim asked the question, if the higher income earning spouse passes, then the lower spouse is going to move up to that higher benefit amount. And that is the amount that they will get plus the cost of living increases forever. Now, here's an example of delayed claiming. So Joe and Julie are married. Joe's PIA is 3,600. He delays claiming to age 70, so his benefit was 124% or 4464. Joe dies. Now, Julie's survivor benefit will be 4464 and not the 3600 because he delayed, he got the cost of living increases, and now that's what she's going to get the rest of her life. So, huge
What
impacts to waiting. I can't say
what
that.
happens what happens if the higher income spouse passes before they claim? Let's say, they're under 70, over 66 or whatever,
So, in that situation, it's just going to depend on when she starts claiming.
Okay.
If he hasn't started claiming yet, then she'll be able to get at least 82.5% of his full retirement benefit. Um, and more than likely that would be whatever percentage he was at, she would probably get about 82.5% of that. There a lot of math involved in that. Um, but
I'm
yeah.
sure that happens. That's why I just thought I'd
Oh
ask.
yeah, no, I'm certain it happens often. So really, in that situation, going back a couple slides, that survivor benefit is going to be based off the full retirement age, because you only get the increased benefits by waiting. Now, if he is weighted, now say he's 69. At this point now, he's going to be at 116% of his full retirement amount. So she would probably get 82.5% of that. All right. So the rules for survivor benefits. The couple must have been married for at least 9 months at the date of death, except in the case of accident. Accidents, you get the benefits right away. The survivor must be at least age 60 for a reduced benefit, 50 if disabled, or full retirement age for the full benefit. Now, the survivor benefit is not available if the widow remarries before age 60 or 50 for the disabled, unless that marriage ends. And then the divorced spouse must have been married for at least 10 years. Now, there are a couple of things with that. A high income earning spouse could have been married 4 times or more to 4 different people for at least 10 years, and each one of those spouses would have access to his benefit without affecting anybody else's benefit. So keep that in mind. Um, if you've been married multiple times and currently you're not married to anyone, you will have access to the benefits of the one that had the most, the highest PIA, as long as you've been married at least 10 years to each of those. So Social Security is going to give you the benefit of the doubt. But what changes that is If you were married to somebody for 40 years that made the maximum amount, and then you decide you want to get remarried again to somebody who made the minimum amount, if you're married, you're going to get that minimum amount. So there may be benefits later in life to not remarrying if you've been married to somebody for a long time that made a significant amount of money. Um, Now, I mentioned my friend earlier that was working in a school cafeteria. She was married to her ex-husband for 9 years, 350 days. Had she been married 15 more days, she would have had access to his spousal benefit, and she just missed the cutoff. Now that was 30 years ago. She didn't know any better. But it's really important to know the rules when you're going through these things because they're going to sneak up and get you at some point. Now, the divorced spouse benefits, 10 years. The person receiving the benefit is currently unmarried. The ex-spouse is at least 62. And if it was a divorce more than 2 years ago, the ex-spouse, this is the one thing that's different. The ex-spouse does not need to have filed for benefits. So in a spousal situation, you do not need the former spouse to have applied for their benefits first. If you're married, the both spouses have to apply for benefits for everybody to receive. In the divorce spouse situation, you do not have to wait for the other spouse to have claimed their benefits. They know a lot of times there's no contact there, or somebody may do something out of spite. So they want everybody to receive their benefits that they deserve when they deserve them. All right, so I went through this one already, but more than one spouse can receive benefits on the same record. They do not affect the benefits of anybody else, and then they also stop upon remarriage. So, a lot of people may be thinking this is really more complicated than I realized. So, we'll go back. We had that slide at the beginning. Would you rather be early or delayed, or would you rather pay a penalty or get a bonus? So, the government didn't set the phrasing up this way intentionally, but it certainly has influenced people who have only seen their claiming choices described as early versus delayed. We don't normally see the claiming question positioned as one of penalty versus bonus, but I think you can see the value of framing the question in that way now, because if you claim early, you're going to pay a penalty on that the rest of your life because you're going to receive less money, your spouse is going to receive less money, and then down the road, you're going to have way less inflation protection than everybody else. So it's not really early versus delayed. Is do I want to pay a penalty or do I want to get a big bonus by waiting? So to review the problem is what we're finding is people are really hurting their retirements by making terrible, costly decisions about Social Security. And the key is really to go through and use that software that I talked about and make an informed decision. Nobody knows the answer, how long you're going to be here, how long your spouse is going to be here. You can only make the best decision for you, but it's vitally important that when you do it, you are taking everything into consideration. Like I mentioned earlier, our parents and grandparents, all they did was decide what age they wanted to start receiving benefits, and they went down to the office and started claiming them. Now things are different. We're going to pay taxes on it. We've got retirement accounts that they're going to force us to start liquidating at some point. We have a legacy what we want to leave to our family. And all of these things are interconnected and have a huge effect on each other. And if you do the best you can to make this informed decision about everything, there are ways to lower those taxes, maximize your legacy, and really live the best life possible and not have to do things because you have to and actually do things because you want to. So, some of the key insights I want to go over again is Social Security does offer inflation protected income that you can't outlive, including benefits for your survivors. Your benefit will be reduced if you claim early. Couples should always maximize the higher earning spouse's benefit for the surviving spouse. And then if you're widowed or divorced, you might be eligible for benefits that increase your check. Social Security, they've got access to all that information, but it's important to call and make sure they know the entire situation and have everything linked together. Uh, but there are a lot of opportunities out here. Everyone needs that personalized Social Security claiming analysis that I talked about. It's just so important to have somebody look over your entire situation. If you have a financial advisor and they're not talking to you about this, I would ask them why. Because Social Security, even though it's only going to be about 40% of your overall plan, there's so many benefits that could happen. I mean, a couple, there's not a slide for this in this presentation. I have another presentation I do for attorneys and CPAs, and it shows a couple that waits till full retirement age that made a decent income in their life could expect to receive over $3 million in Social Security in their lifetime. That's a lot of money that they're not taking out of their retirement accounts. They're not taking out of their legacy, money that they're going to be able to give to their church and other places they want to give it to. So it really does have a huge plan. If your advisor is not talking to you about this, I really would ask them why. And then just remember the effect of all these different things. You know, what's going to happen when you do have to start taking those RMDs? What kind of risk can you take in your investment portfolio knowing that you have this income that you can't outlive? It could allow you to be a little bit more aggressive in your other investing. There are just a lot of options. Your pension, depending on when you want to start taking your pension, what effect is that going to have on all your Social Security or your taxation? And then the key for most people, how long do you want to work? How long do you want to work because you have to work? And how long do you want to work because you want to work? Do you want to stop working your, 80-hour a week job and start doing something you want to do instead? If you have this full plan, you really have way more options in making those decisions, and you have clarity of when you could make those decisions. And that's the key. My friend that I talked about in the beginning, he was so unsure of what his overall plan was that he worked a year longer than he needed to. Had he come into my office 6 months earlier, like I asked him to, there was a really good chance that he could have stopped working shortly after that. But he kept delaying, delaying, delaying because he was watching the news and he was hearing all these stories and he just didn't know that he could retire when he could. And having somebody look over all of this for you is really going to help you make an informed decision and live life more intentionally. So, what I mentioned this earlier, what Social Security personnel can and can't do. They can help you estimate your benefits. They can tell you the amount you're entitled to now. But what they can't do is help you project your future benefits. They can tell you there are probably going to be cost of living increases, but they can't tell you how much and when. And they can't help you come up with innovative strategies to help maximize your benefits. They're not going to be able to work all of your personal savings and other income strategies into one plan. They're only going to be looking at that same Social Security statement that you get in the mail every year or that you have access to online and saying, this is how much you get at 67. This is how much you might get if you wait till 70. And that's all they're going to be able to do. So these are the questions that we've gone through. If you have these questions still about your personal situation, I would be happy to talk to you. I would be happy to walk you through what your plan is. I could show you those break even scenarios. One of the first things we're going to want to do is make sure you've got your most recent Social Security statements, so I can see what your primary insurance amount is. We plug that into the software with your age, how long you plan to work, all those different things, and then it runs all those break even scenarios for you. So you can see the best way to maximize your benefits. But you can also see, if you're somebody who does need to start claiming early, or one person wants to claim at 67 versus 70, what impact that's going to have on your entire plan. And it really helps to see it in graphs and numbers in writing what you should do next. Because there are a lot of opportunities out there way different than it was a long time ago to really make the best decision possible. It's too important to guess. Let's just do an analysis and see what's best for you. I will offer a complimentary 1 hour service, and that's what we're doing. We're going through the different scenarios. We're looking at your claiming strategies. We'll complete an evaluation um, of your entire situation. Sorry, I read that one wrong. Um, I was on a roll there. But during that 1 hour session, like I said, we can take you through your entire situation. I'm a nice guy, so if you do not have access to your Social Security statement, if you can't find it, the one that came in the mail, you can't figure out how to log in, that's something that I can help you with. I'll be happy to do that. But if anybody wants this kind of analysis, reach out, let me know, and I'll be happy to go through these strategies with you so you can see what your specific benefits could be and what impact it's going to have on your entire strategy.
Well, I will say this is phenomenal. This is really, I think the one I saw you do someplace else was a shorter version of this. This is
Hmm.
really very in depth and very good. I know that one thing you put me at ease on is I was not aware that my wife she was a stay at home mom. Then when she did go back to work after the kids were out of high school, then she got into a situation where we had parents and family members, so she was having to take more part-timey things so she could take care of the seniors. Well, at my half of mine will be more than what she gets maximum, so
Hmm.
for sure. So that's good to know. um and that's one thing that with Life's Copilot that we have run into as I've been interviewing different people is a lot of people get themselves in trouble because they don't think about the fact that the stay-at-home moms, whatever, what that impact's going to be down the road, or additionally the small business owner that may have hidden a lot of their money through the process, that now is going to may come back to bite them. I run into families where one of the households I was doing with an estate and all that kind of stuff, the gentleman had always been an independent contractor, really didn't turn in a lot of his taxes, and he has no Social Security capability. He gets nothing.
Hmm.
Okay. And he's 80. Okay. You don't really think of that, but you don't realize, you have to have those 10 years of work and these different things you have to do. And then another one that I'm running into, and I've seen on multiple occasions, especially as we're doing estates and helping people downsize, or maybe mom or dad had to move into a assisted living or what have you, and then the daughter who had quit working a long time before to be a caregiver and to help the family, she was getting her bills paid by them, but she wasn't getting paid. And so
Hmm.
she has no income record, and now she has no house, she has no Social Security. She has nothing. And, it's a little hard to recoup from that. So these are things that a lot of people are not thinking about, but they have big ramifications for long term.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we see a lot of those business owners that have very creative accountants and are grateful not to write a big check at the end of the year or quarterly. And then, yes, they are kicking themselves later because not only have they minimized their taxes, but they minimized their Social Security. And a lot of the people have maximized their lifestyle and haven't saved nearly as much as they should have to make up for it because they didn't realize. But I just recently worked with a woman at our church. Her dad has dementia. And about 4 years ago, she and her husband moved into dad's house, and she had to quit her job at Anthem. She had a really good job with Anthem, and she had to quit her job to help take care of her dad. And now she's in a situation where she doesn't have any money coming in, and they're trying to get dad qualified for Medicaid, and Medicaid wants his house to be the collateral for the Medicaid.
Yeah.
And there's a very good chance that she and her husband are going to lose that house.
So
And
they need to get an attorney involved in that, but for sure, but, to help
yeah,
walk them through it
yeah,
if they have the resources to do it.
yeah, and we're working on that.
Yeah.
But she doesn't have any money,
Yeah.
and the attorneys like to get paid.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, there's just so many different things that people just don't realize the impact of decisions they make now are going to have in the future.
Yeah, it's when you get into the senior world and you're dealing with the aftermath, a lot of times that's when you find these things out with people, and that's really why we're trying to do this stuff, to get people this information when they have time to do something about it.
Absolutely.
So, well, I'm just looking to see if there's any other questions on here. I'm not seeing any, but Jamie, I want to really thank you for coming in and doing this. This was great. There's a lot of good information in there. And kind of as a joke to the whole thing, as I was sitting there going, well, at least my ex-wife can't, cash in on me because, she's got too many strikes here. First of all, we didn't do 10 years. It was 5 years. It was 42 years ago. But, and from what I understand, she's been married that I know of 11 times since me. So she's got
Oh
other
wow.
issues she has to deal with. So anyway,
Yeah. Yeah. Chances are she wasn't married to any of them for 10 years. Okay.
exactly. So that's a whole other story. I could write a book about that. But anyway, but anyway, well, thank you so much for sharing with us and giving this information. And between the two of our dogs, they weren't too much problem. So this one had to come in to help out here at the end. But
I appreciate
so
mine was quite distracting. She wanted to come inside about 20 minutes ago.
uh
And at one point, she had her face pushed up against the window trying to see if she could see anybody in here to let her in the door.
well, this one had it was. I think we had two Amazon deliveries while this was going on.
Mhm.
So, but
Yeah.
anyway.
I don't feel bad. I put water out there for her. The temperature is 60 degrees. She's fine.
Yeah, there you go. All righty, sir. Well, thank you very much.
Awesome. Thank you.
All
Have a
right.
good one.
You too. Bye bye.